Pakistan says it's ready to host talks on ending the war in Iran. That came after a meeting of regional foreign ministers in Islamabad. But what leverage do these players have to reach a ceasefire? And with the fighting escalating, is a peaceful settlement really possible? This is Inside Story. Hello there, I'm James Vaez. As the war in Iran continues to escalate, Pakistan has emerged as a potential facilitator to secure an end to the fighting. Its foreign minister has hosted a meeting with top diplomats from Saudi Arabia, Turkiye and Egypt. Afterwards, he said Islamabad was ready to host and broker what he described as meaningful talks between Iran and the US. Pakistan has close ties with both Tehran and Washington, giving it an advantage as a mediator. Could this be the beginning of a diplomatic push to end the war Israel and the US launched last month? We'll discuss the prospects of these diplomatic efforts when our guests join us in just a moment. But first, Imogen Kimber has our report.
The foreign ministers of Saudi Arabia, Turkiye and Egypt in Pakistan to discuss the war that's engulfed the Middle East.
The foreign ministers reaffirmed unity to contain the situation, reduce the risk of military escalation, and create conditions for structured negotiations between relevant parties.
The Pakistani government has been a go-between for the US and Iran and delivered the US's 15-point plan to Tehran after weeks of bombardment by the US and Israel and return fire from Tehran, directed at Israeli and US interests across the Gulf. Pakistan is one of a few countries that has good ties with the US and Iran, as well as many of the Gulf states. But Pakistan also has its own stake in peace. The war is potentially destabilising. The killing of Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei caused riots. And the conflict is on its doorstep, at a time when it's already fighting its neighbour, Afghanistan. Pakistan buys more than 85% of its oil from the Gulf, so fuel prices have increased by about 20%, which is tough on an already impoverished population. And more than 5 million Pakistanis working in the Gulf send home roughly about 38.3 billion a year. The other four ministers in the room also stand to lose economically, particularly with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and from instability in the region.
The scenario Israel wants is for the Islamic countries to engage in a long-term regional conflict against each other. Please don't do this. This is our advice for both Iran and other countries. Don't fall for Israel's games.
US President Donald Trump says he supports diplomatic efforts.
Sir, could you foresee a deal in Iran this upcoming week?
I do see a deal in Iran, yeah.
Mr. President,
could be soon.
But Iran not only says the 15-point plan is unfair, it says reports of talks are a delaying tactic while Trump sends US Marines towards Iran. Imogen Kimber, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
Let's discuss the prospects for diplomacy with our guests today on Inside Story. In New York, Munir Akram, a former permanent representative of Pakistan to the United Nations. In Geneva, Vaez, director of the Iran project at the International Crisis Group, who took part in the 2015 Iran nuclear deal negotiations. And in Ankara, Buzkat Aran, director of TPAF, the Economic Policy Research Foundation of Turkiye, and a former Turkish ambassador to Pakistan, and also in his career to Iran. Thank you, all three of you, for joining us. So we've just had these meetings taking place in Islamabad. Munir, if I can start with you. Pakistan there with Saudi Arabia, Turkey and Egypt. Pakistan is very much now in the driving seat on this. In the statement, those foreign ministers said they would look at possible ways to bring an early and permanent end to the war. But be realistic. That's a very tall order, is it not?
Yes, of course. We see that the positions of the two sides, as expressed in the 15-point plan of the US and the 5 points given by Iran, are very different, very maximalistic, as you've said. So we have to start, I think, with trying to find what are the points that will need to be agreed in order to get an early ceasefire and to launch negotiations after that or in parallel in order to build up a comprehensive agreement. So I think it will have to be a two-step process, in my view.
Ali, I mean, if we go back to last year and this year before the war started, it was Oman that had this facilitation role. Now it's moved to Pakistan. Why did that change? What went wrong with Oman? Because certainly the Omani foreign minister, who was leading this effort, was pretty honest about where he thinks things went wrong.
Well, two reasons, James. One is that Oman was burned twice during the mediation process in 2025 and in 2026. In the middle of negotiations, the United States and Israel bombed Iran. And second reason is that Oman is now actually caught in the crossfire, is one of the Gulf states that has been targeted by the Iranians. And to my understanding, there is a collective decision within the GCC that they would not engage in mediation until and unless Iran stops attacking them. And this is why there is a need for a new set of mediators, and these four countries are now filling the gap. I think the problem, as the ambassador said, is that the positions are too far apart. But I would also argue that a ceasefire is not a solution that is likely, because the Iranians did accept a ceasefire in 2025, only to be attacked again 8 months later. And of course, we have seen Israel also not respecting ceasefires in other cases, in Gaza and in Lebanon. So here's the dilemma, that a comprehensive solution is just not on the cards, and a ceasefire is also not attractive, at least to one party.
Buscat, if I can ask you about these four countries led by Pakistan. They're all big, powerful regional players. Saudi Arabia, clearly directly involved, the largest country in the GCC, and it has missiles landing in Saudi Arabia. The other three are big, powerful actors on the world stage, but with very significant challenges back home. And I think the other thing in common is that they are going to be affected, already are being affected, but are going to be affected very, very badly very soon by the economic fallout. Would you agree?
That question was forwarded to me. Okay. Well, I think at this right moment, it is important to have some kind of contact among the parties. By parties, I mean, eventually there is Israel one side, United States one side, and of course Iran. So there are three parties that has to get involved. And the only way to get them in a table or at a table that could find a suitable solutions for all three is quite a task. And it is the geography that dictates the terms. And at this right moment, it is not the power that you impose on the countries. But eventually, at the long run, it is the geography. And at this right moment, I think the most important geographical difference is the Hormuz Strait. So you need to find a solution to that. And in order to find a solution, one of the parties would be happy, or you would be seeking for a guarantee. At this right moment, the question of guarantee, and what happens to Iran afterwards? What happens to Israel afterwards? Who's going to give the guarantees? And whose guarantees would be substantial or agreeable? And that's why I say it is the geography that dictates the term. Of course, to have the diplomats sitting around the table, and of course, Munir Akram and Vaez, I'm very happy to be with them at the same forum. But they are the masters of the diplomacy. But diplomacy comes to a certain level. But then it is the politicians who make a decision.
Munir, Munir, if I can bring in Munir Akram. Munir, I mean, for Pakistan, this is going to be a very difficult job But at the same time, you could argue it is politically useful back home because Pakistan, already suffering from the severe economic fallout, already involved in a conflict with its neighbour Afghanistan. The most popular politician, as you know, in Pakistan is Imran Khan, the former Prime Minister. He's locked up in jail. In some ways, this gives the Pakistan government the ability to show they are doing something. Would you agree?
Well, James, it's not that we have to show that we're doing something. We have to do something because Pakistan is, as you rightly say, is directly impacted. Can you imagine if Saudi Arabia, for example, were to come into the war? We would be caught in a huge dilemma because we have a defense pact with Saudi Arabia. And at the same time, Iran is our neighbor. Up to 20% of our population is Shia population. So we'd have a huge problem on our hands if this war were to spread and to involve our defense allies. Therefore, we have to try and stop this war as soon as possible. It's a compulsion. It's not only a ploy for domestic reasons. It is a strategic compulsion for Pakistan to try and stop this war as soon as possible.
Ali, I mean, the wild card, or one of the wild cards in any talks, if it gets to any talks, is yes, you've got the US and Iran, but you've also got Israel. We heard in our report at the beginning of the programme, the Turkish foreign minister say the scenario Israel wants is for the Islamic countries to engage in a long-term regional conflict against each other. These are not the four countries that Israel would have chosen, are they?
Well, at the end of the day, if this conflict escalates and Iran and the GCC engage in direct conflict, of course, the entire region would be weakened as a result of it. And that is, I think, what the Turkish foreign minister is referring to, that the region would be even more weakened compared to a much more assertive and dominant Israel. But at the end of the day, I think it's important to add to what was mentioned about Pakistan's interest here. There is also the fear of Iranian disintegration. And of course, Iran has a Baluch minority bordering Pakistan. Some of them are armed, seeking separation from Iran. And that, of course, could become a source of internal concern for Pakistan as well. Same for Turkey with the Kurdish minority. And of course, again, the Saudis have their own concern about their energy resources. And even Egypt now could be affected because the Houthis have joined the battle. And if they close the Bab el-Mandab and put pressure on the commercial traffic in the Red Sea, it would be disastrous for Egypt as well. So everybody's affected. All of these countries could be adversely affected if this conflict continues to escalate.
Buzkat, as we've said, both sides are staking out maximalist positions. The gap between the two sides, and I'm not including Israel, the gap between the US and between Iran is enormous right now. You are a veteran diplomat. Where would you start if you were planning these talks? Where should be the starting point?
Well, the most important thing is to keep them talking and to be able to put them around the table and try to discuss, try to find a common ground. It's quite difficult. At this right moment, as I was telling before, it is a geography. So when I say geography, of course, you have the Shiites, you have the minorities, and all those countries are not totally immune from other problems. But then the question is, and anything that happens in the Middle East happens to all of us, and that's where we are now. And why this is happening? It is because of the setting of the Middle East, and you cannot change it. You should not change it. You should not try to change it. So you have to find the guarantee for all sides, and how you find it. That's the main question. I mean, it takes a bit time. But otherwise, you can find, I don't think there will be ceasefire and this kind of interim solutions. at the end, we need to find a guarantee that all countries would be happy to live with, and that takes time. And we should also consider the might of the United States. They are pouring 2005 new elements into the game, foot soldiers. But on the other side, we should also recognize the mindset of the Iranian people. They will not give up. They will continue.
Munir, I mean, to
what
have
kind of
talks
a
like
guarantee will
this,
stop
Munir
them from
Akram,
continuing?
to have
Thank
talks
you.
like this, you're going to need trust, and there is no trust here, is there? I mean, twice the US have used diplomacy as a ruse. In June last year and just a month ago, each time there were more talks in the diary, and instead a military attack was launched. Now, as Pakistan is trying to start a process, there is a further military build-up. Do you fear there's a possibility that Pakistan is being used here, and how much is the US's word worth anymore?
Well, I think those are I think, real concerns. But here's the difference, I think. First of all, we are involving, as has been said, 4 important countries in the process. And therefore, if there is an abrogation of trust, it will be an abrogation of trust with these 4 important regional players. And I think the United States and Israel both will have to take into account the consequences of abrogating trust with these four countries, which have offered their role in the mediation. So that's one difference. Secondly, the U.S. and Israel have achieved a number of their military objectives. They have destroyed the Iranian assets, and perhaps they are no more large targets to achieve, at least from an aerial bombardment point of view. Of course, if they go in on the land, boots on the ground, it's going to be a different story. And that's one of the things we have to prioritize, is the prevention of an escalation or further escalation of this war, either with boots on the ground or with targeting of civilian infrastructure, energy infrastructure. That will have huge consequences with lasting impact on the global economy.
Ali, I mean, Pakistan is clearly been in touch with the Trump administration and with the Iranians. In fact, the Field Marshal, Munir, the Chief of Staff of the Pakistan military, has been having some of those conversations. But then when you hear what President Trump is saying, and he gives us a commentary nearly every day on his social media site, serious discussions, great progress. From what you're hearing from diplomats, is there actually this sort of active diplomacy really underway, or is this just for the markets?
I do believe that it's more a mechanism to try to control the markets and reassure them. But I don't see significant signs of progress at this point, James. And one advantage that these countries have is that they have direct access to President Trump. But unfortunately, I think the president is still convinced that pressure is going to work eventually, that threats are eventually going to result in Iranian capitulation, which is a misguided belief. But he is still going to persist, I imagine, on this pathway. I would take signs of positive progress in the negotiations more seriously if he would, instead of putting more time on the clock, he would actually delay the deployment of the troops. And he's not doing that. I think he's now convinced that he needs a masterstroke in order to change the balance in this war in his favor and eventually push the Iranians to surrender. So, I don't see any flexibility on stepping back from the maximalist demands. And on the Iranian side, by the way, it's the exact mirror image. They too believe that They have wind in their sails, and time is on their side. This is a war of attrition that is benefiting them. And if the U.S. actually puts boots on the ground, they would be able to jack up the price for the United States by, in addition to the economic cost of this on the U.S. and for the global economy, send American body bags back home.
Bozkurt, I mean, how much of a problem for the diplomats involved in these four countries, and particularly Pakistan, is President Trump? I mean, he's recently said a deal could be made fairly quickly. Then in the same interview, he said, to be honest, my favourite thing is to take the oil in Iran, suggesting there could be an operation to take Karg Island. He said we could take it very easily. I mean, it must be very, very hard for any diplomat trying to get something going to have President Trump there saying these things constantly.
You're absolutely right. I mean, we can let our mind drift a little bit and to make a comparison. And in my mind, Iranians are playing chess. So they move their troops and whatever they have in an orderly manner, and they know when to strike. The latest, the deadly weapon was fired on the 25th day after war. They haven't done it on the first day. So they have calculated. But on the other side, Iran and United States, it's kind of a poker play that we are seeing. And they are piling the money, the table with money, and they are importing more deadly weapons on the ground. But to find a solution through chess and both games are mastered by Iranians and the United States. Poker was an American invention, let's say, the way it is played now. So in my mind, Iranians have a determined mind. And they have the ideological underpinning of the Iranian people we should take into account. They won't give up. They suffer. The country will be backwards 30 years or something, but they will not get up. They will not surrender. So in their minds, United States and England in 1953, Mossadegh, the coup, that still employs a very serious sin in the eyes of the Iranian people. But on the other side, in the United States, we see that there are secondary ideas or second opinions. And why do we have to keep this unending wars continue?
Munir, you're a very experienced diplomat. You've twice been served on the UN Security Council. You've been president of the Security Council. The first time you served, it was during the Iraq War, so you know about the US and its wars. What do you think should be the priority for the diplomacy right now? Is it a ceasefire? Is it getting the Straits of Hormuz open? Because, I mean, if it's the Straits of Hormuz, it is pretty telling that problem number one wasn't even there before the war. It's actually a product of the war.
Right. So, James, my view is the first priority has to be to prevent an escalation. Escalation either through a land incursion by the US or escalated bombing of civilian targets, energy targets, because that will invoke a reaction from the Iranians, and there will be huge destruction in the whole of the Persian Gulf. So that's got to be the first priority for us, is to prevent the escalation. Secondly, to find some way to stop the fighting, including perhaps some understanding on the basis for the opening or reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, if the Iranians agree to that, we will have to give them something. And that could be in the form of some kind of access to their financial resources, some easing of sanctions, some income from the traffic in the Strait of Hormuz, whatever. But we need to give them some incentive to accept the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. So these are some of the sort of early stage things that we can discuss in the diplomacy. But the most important objective is to prevent escalation. And I think Ali Vaez is right. We see both possibilities. With the U.S. forces coming in, there is obviously an option to escalate, and I think that would be the biggest disaster that we would face.
Ali, with regard to the Straits of Hormuz, which is causing so much trouble for the global economy, do you see any mechanism that could come out of these talks and this diplomacy? There is some talk of a consortium. We had a consortium mentioned ages ago in trying to deal with Iran's nuclear program, but we've moved on, of course, from then. There's also a new UN task force that's been set up, I'm told, with the model of the Black Sea Grain Initiative, and also in the UN Security Council, which Munir knows very well, Bahrain has come up with a draft of a possible resolution. Do you see any of those as being a way forward?
So let me put it this way. First, opening the strait does not have a military solution. Even if the United States takes over some of the Iranian islands or the shoreline, as we have seen in the case of the Houthi attacks in the Red Sea, Iranians can still conduct attacks from further inland. And it takes not more than 1 or 2 drones a day to deter vessels from passing through the strait. Same with Bahrain's resolution of trying to organize some sort of international maritime military mechanism to try to bring security to the Gulf region. That's not going to work either. The solution is diplomatic. And I think Ambassador Munir was absolutely right. You start with putting a ceiling on escalation. And civilian targets, I think, should be the number one issue that is taken off the table because we're moving now in the infrastructure attack phase of this war. And then along with that, you can try to use the Black Sea Initiative model to allow fertilizer, food, and medicine to pass through the strait. Now, as unacceptable as it might sound to allow Iran to collect a transit fee, from the Iranian perspective, because they're so cynical about negotiating with the U.S. or the U.S. delivering on its promises or giving them sanctions relief, this is the only way that they believe that they can recover from this war.
Thank you very much, Ali Vaez, Munir, Akram and Buzkurt Aran, for analysis of every aspect of the war, including the chances for diplomacy. Why not check out our website, aljazeera.com. We'd like to hear what you have to say too. Post your comments on our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. Or you can go to X. There you can find us at AJ Inside Story. For now, that's it from me, James Vaez, and all the team here. Stay tuned. Al Jazeera's coverage continues in just a moment.